Let's catch up on some football.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome in a Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Of course, we're always free and available wherever you get your podcasts, and we're going to catch up on everything Syracuse football related. It's been a lot of basketball lately on this channel, and Syracuse football has also been in the news. So let's talk about it here, all right? A recruiting update coming up later in the show. Spring roster takeaways. The roster just came out, of course. And to begin the podcast, we have an update with the Syracuse-Colorado potential spring game. Now, before we get to everything, this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Last time we left off, I did a mini podcast on basically saying that Syracuse and Colorado playing a joint spring game and having a couple practices would be amazing. And Fran Brown said publicly on Twitter that he would love to come to Boulder for 3 days for joint practices. Of course, you got the spring game to conclude, but during it also financial literacy sessions, because obviously these kids, they're getting paid now, but they got to be taught what they are doing with their money. So it seems like, at least on paper, a great idea. Well, over the last couple of days, we got an update as far as a Syracuse-Colorado spring game. It came less than 48 hours ago. Shout out to Syracuse.com's Javon Edmonds. I believe he is new to Syracuse.com. So again, shout out Javon Edmonds. The update is this. Syracuse and Colorado have filed the paperwork with the NCAA to make this happen. Currently, joint practices between teams and scrimmages are not allowed. The good news is that Deion Sanders for Colorado seems pretty confident. He's recently told his team, quote, "This thing may very well happen. It looks really good right now," end quote. Fran Brown, obviously he loves the idea, especially with it being with Colorado and Deion Sanders. We'll talk more about those quotes with Fran Brown when we have a full podcast reacting to everything that Fran Brown said in his first spring press conference. So, with that being said, when should we all expect to hear back? Again, shout out Javon Edmonds here. The Division I FBS Oversight Committee meets on April 10th. So with that date in mind, I think it's fair to assume that we're going to have an answer as to whether or not this will happen in either early to mid-April. I think that's when we'll find out about this. Now, let's get into some commentary, okay? I scanned through the comments section. I responded to a lot of you all in that first mini podcast. It's now the most popular podcast here on Locked On Syracuse, so shout out to you all for watching and listening to that one. The comments, for the most part, were very positive. I would say that 99% of you all were in favor of a Syracuse-Colorado joint practice spring game at the end type of event, and this would be great across all of college football. I think this would be amazing. There was one counterpoint that did stick out from those that were maybe less inclined to the idea. And it's because some people, and I'm not necessarily trying to call you out or throw you under the bus or anything like that. I'm just trying to bring up a concern because I didn't really have many concerns that first time around. Mine was really just tampering could be a problem. The point that some people brought up was injuries. They want everyone healthy to start next season. And guess what? We all agree on that. I think everyone, no matter what team you cheer for, wants the players to be healthy for the start of the season. And I understand being worried about injuries. I get it. But this is football. And injuries are going to happen all the time. You don't know when. You don't know who. but you know they're going to happen. It's the worst part about football. It's the worst part about sports. And what I don't understand about injuries in regards to this is exactly that. How does a Syracuse and Colorado spring game increase the likelihood of injuries compared to a normal spring game when you just have one squad of Syracuse facing another squad of Syracuse? They're playing against each other. Or for Colorado, one Colorado team plays the other Colorado team. It's just mixed squads. I don't understand. I just don't see how injuries would go up just because now it's two different teams going up against each other. And also, you have to keep in mind, again, they can happen to anyone at any time. One of the worst examples is Teddy Bridgewater suffering a near career-threatening knee injury in training camp. I believe this happened in 2016, and he did it on a play-action pass. He wasn't even hit. Like, it can happen. So they suck, but you just kind of have to deal with them. And I would not let the fear of injury get in the way of what could be an amazing event between Syracuse and Colorado. So not that they need my approval, but I'm certainly giving my stamp of approval on this. A Syracuse-Colorado spring game would be terrific. So once again, the update is that Syracuse and Colorado have both filed the necessary paperwork to make this type of event happen. It's going to be on national television if it happens. Deion Sanders seems confident about it once again. We should find out in early to mid-April when the Division I FBS Oversight Committee meets, and I imagine they're going to discuss the paperwork that Syracuse and Colorado filed. I'm not going to speculate as to whether or not this will happen or not, but I am simply updating you on what we know as of this time. Hopefully, it does happen because it would be outstanding, and I think it would change college football and spring preparation forever. All right, so that's the update with the spring game with Syracuse and Colorado. Now coming up, Colorado fans, this is where you say goodbye in case you clicked on this podcast. Syracuse football spring roster takeaways coming up next. Daylight savings snuck up on us again, and if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5-Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late watching the NCAA tournament, squeezing in a round of golf after work, or just trying to keep up with your busy day, 5-Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. Whether I'm at a game or traveling, 5-Hour Energy is easy to grab and keeps me feeling refreshed. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack delivered right to your door. You need one now? Grab a 5-Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They're everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized. This is Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer. And folks, if you enjoy this podcast, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Not only is it completely free and it allows the channel to show up directly on your feed, but it also helps the channel grow and reach all Syracuse Orange fans. Let's step back to this football catch-up podcast. We just talked about the spring game update with Syracuse and Colorado. Now this is just going to be Syracuse-centric, all right? Spring roster takeaways for the Orange. They recently released its roster. We have one positive takeaway from it, and then there's one, I wouldn't call it positive, but I wouldn't call it a negative takeaway from it. Let's start with the positive, okay? Mark Petry, he's on the roster, and he's back with Syracuse football for another season. Mark Petry is a 6'4", 300-pound guard. He started every game for Syracuse last season, playing over 1,000 total snaps. He had a Pro Football Focus grade of 62.9. It's not a bad grade at all. Pro Football Focus scales from a 0 to 100. And this is not like going to school where a 62 means you got a D. 62.9 is actually a pretty decent grade for a guard. Originally, Mark Petry had no more eligibility after the 2024 season. So if you go back and you look at that first full podcast I did on transfer portal needs, I mentioned that Syracuse is going to need to replace a lot of its offensive line because a lot of them have graduated, and Mark Petry was one of those players. However, he gained another year of eligibility because he started his career at the JUCO level. There was a court case earlier this offseason with Vanderbilt quarterback Diego Pavia, and that opened the door for everyone who graduated in 2024 who had no more years of eligibility to come back for another year if they so choose, if they started their collegiate career at the JUCO level. Mark Petry, not only is he choosing to use that extra year of eligibility, he is choosing to use it with Syracuse. The reason why I bring that up is because if you recall earlier this offseason, John Ray Reed, the center for Syracuse in 2024, he also got an additional year of eligibility from that JUCO ruling, but he decided to enter the transfer portal. And if memory serves correct, I believe he went to USC, but you can fact check me on that one. Mark Petry next year, he projects to be a starting guard once again. So perhaps this eliminates a potential need for Syracuse in the spring transfer portal window. They still could look to add one more offensive lineman, but it's great having the clarity that Mark Petry is back with Syracuse. The football spring portal window, by the way, opens on April 16th, and it runs until April 25th. Excuse me. Yes, folks, there is another transfer portal window for football. So keep your eye on that come mid-April, all right? Another takeaway from Syracuse's spring roster is that a former Georgia transfer wide receiver is no longer on it, and that's Zeed Haynes, and there's good reason for him to not be on the roster. Fran Brown said that Zeed Haynes has retired from football. So here's some background on Zeed Haynes. He transferred to Syracuse ahead of the 2024 season. He was the team's #1 outside wide receiver in their first 2 games of 2024. So that's Ohio and Georgia Tech. Showed a good bit of promise, but he did not play the rest of the season. He missed it due to personal and family matters. However, he did return at some point to the sideline, and I think we were all hoping that Zeed Haynes would return to the Orange in 2025 and become a big part of this offense. Obviously, I wish Zeed Haynes nothing but the best in retirement. I hope he gets the most out of the education here at Syracuse University. Selfishly, I am a little bummed that he decided to retire because he was a promising wide receiver. This is someone who was a 4-star recruit in 2023 at Georgia. He redshirted. He transfers to Syracuse. I think a lot of us thought he could be a really good player for the Orange. But he decided to retire, thought he could have a big role in 2025. As far as the team is concerned, I guess that Syracuse football is going to target a wide receiver in that spring transfer portal window. And perhaps we kind of know why the Orange were going after Amari Evans from Penn State late in the fall portal window. If you recall, I remember when that whole saga went down, Syracuse met with Amari Evans. Ultimately, I believe he decided to go to Washington. But they were going after him. I mean, they were pursuing him, and I was saying, do they really need a wide receiver? And the reason why I question that is because, well, isn't Zeed Haynes going to be back with the team next year? Well, of course, they know more than we do, so perhaps that's the reason why they were going after Amari Evans. I would not be surprised if the Orange ultimately get a wide receiver in the spring transfer portal window. So those are 2 big takeaways I had from Syracuse's spring roster. They're getting Mark Petry back, so that should help the offensive line. However, Zeed Haynes is retiring from football. I wish him nothing but the best. Now coming up, a football recruiting update. Imagine watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy of the crowd and witnessing unforgettable moments. There's nothing like experiencing a big game in person. Getting tickets shouldn't be stressful, and that's where Game Time comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. I just checked the Game Time app, and there are amazing deals on some huge matchups coming up in March Madness. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
We got a couple commits over the last couple of days for Syracuse football. Okay? Number one, Sutton from Florida. We've talked about it numerous times here on this podcast that Fran Brown and Syracuse football are really emphasizing the state of Florida with recruiting. Well, they pick up Sutton from the Sunshine State. Sutton is listed at 6'1", 190 pounds. He is an athlete on 24/7 Sports, and he is rated as a 3-star on Rivals. We don't know exactly what position Syracuse is recruiting Sutton for because he can play safety, he can play running back, and he can also play wide receiver, hence why 24/7 Sports is listing Sutton as an athlete. So that's one recruit that Syracuse football got recently. But how about another one? Darnell Stokes Jr. from Delaware, listed at 6'2", 185 pounds. He is a wide receiver over on 24/7 Sports. He's not yet rated on any of the major recruiting services, which tells me and should tell you that he's probably going to get a 3-star rating when all is said and done. So Syracuse football, with those two commits, they are up to 11 verbal commits in the class of 2026, and it also ranks top 15 in the country nationally. So that's a 2026 football recruiting update, getting Sutton and Darnell Stokes Jr. But we also have some news regarding the 2025 recruiting class, which is still not over. There is still one more player that we are keeping an eye on, and that is elite 4-star cornerback Javari Flowers. He reportedly visited Syracuse on March 21st. According to Syracuse.com, he's got a top 6 of Syracuse, North Carolina, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, and Miami. And Flowers is expected to make his decision on March 31st. I'm happy that Syracuse football got a visit, but from speaking to Brian Smith just a couple of weeks ago, unless something drastic has changed with Javari Flowers, I'm not going to count Syracuse out, but I would certainly not consider them the favorite for Javari Flowers in this one. I think that goes to a tie between Miami and Georgia, with Florida seemingly also trying to sneak in there as well for Javari Flowers. So that is a football recruiting update. Syracuse got 2 commits in the class of 2026. They are still waiting on elite 4-star corner Javari Flowers to make his decision. Hopefully it goes Syracuse's way, but I am not necessarily expecting it. As far as what is coming up here on Locked On Syracuse in the future, coming up later, a transfer portal guide for Syracuse basketball will run through everything that you need to know for Syracuse and the portal this offseason. I do want to release it at midnight, but if I can't, it should be up at some point earlier in the day tomorrow. Also, next week here on the podcast, we will have a football podcast or two because we're going to react to everything that Fran Brown said and in his first spring press conference. If we recall, we did this with Adrian Autry in his final post-game press conference, talking a lot about the offseason. Well, Fran Brown had some interesting comments, and we'll react to all of them here on Locked On Syracuse. And thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen today. For your second listen, you can check out the Locked On College Basketball Podcast with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. March is here, so be the most informed college basketball fan throughout the madness. And you can find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button. If you really enjoy the podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. Turn on those notifications so you know right away when I am dropping that next podcast. Yesterday, there was a lot of portal news with Syracuse basketball. Chris Bell going in, and then about an hour later, Elijah Chopper-Moore going in the portal. So trust me, you're going to want to turn on those notifications so that you know when I am dropping that next podcast. And if you could also be so kind, just tell one or two of your Syracuse friends about the Locked On Syracuse podcast so this channel can grow and reach all Syracuse fans. I will see you all again soon, everyone.